Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Muslim Sex Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your patronage, and I would love it if you could leave me a 5-star review because that really helps me. And if you could like and share this episode with somebody that you know that may benefit, your friend, your colleague, anyone, I'd really love you to share this podcast, especially if you find value in the Muslim Sex Podcast. Also, I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on all my social media. Also, as you probably know, if you've been listening to this podcast, is that I have a practice that is now open in Chappaqua, New York. I see patients for menopause and sexual health, as well as regular gynecology. So if you are looking for a gynecologist that actually spends time with you, that has time to listen to you, then I would invite you to come and see me in my practice, and I'd be more than happy to take care of you. So make sure if you live in the New York area, or even if you don't, come and see me in my office. I'd love to meet you. And also, last but not least, is that I am hosting again my retreat in Morocco for 2025. So if you are looking for a gift for a family member, a friend, yourself, make sure you take a look at our retreat, the Love and Nourish Retreat. It will be held September 19th through the 26th, 2025. Again, this year in Morocco, we will be visiting the same towns. We will be in Marrakesh and Essaouira. And as always, we will be providing information and lectures on menopause, perimenopause, nutrition, and also going for cooking classes as well as excursions. So don't miss out. I know a lot of people were sad when they missed out this past year on the Morocco retreat. So make sure that you go and visit the Love and Nourish Retreat hosted by Caria Retreats. And now onto the episode. I am an American board certified OBGYN, a mom, a Muslim, and I'm talking about sex. This is the Muslim Sex Podcast. Welcome to the Muslim Sex Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sadaf Lodi, and this episode is everything you need to know about self-love. Oftentimes, I feel that we don't really focus on self-love, and that really is the foundation to loving others. So that's why I'm dedicating this whole episode to loving yourself. Of course, before I get into this, is not really going to be any type of medical advice. So if you have any questions or if you have any issues with loving yourself, please speak with a healthcare specialist, such as a therapist that can help you. And of course, this is not meant to be any type of religious advice. So if you have any questions about your religion, know that most religions say and talk about self-love and how important self-love is. But please speak with a friendly neighborhood religious leader. This is the Muslim Sex Podcast because I just happen to be a Muslim woman that talks about sex. So this episode is all about loving yourself. And look at my sweatshirt. Do you see it? I see it. It says love yourself. And I think this is a super important topic. And I think it's important for so many reasons. But I think that one of the biggest reasons is that when we are able to love ourselves, then we can show that love and give that love to other people. And when we love ourselves, we also project that energy. If we are looking for a relationship, if we're looking for somebody to love or to have a relationship with, it's important to have that good energy that comes out, that emit positive energy, right? That's the kind of person that you want. And I think that when we have a lot of negative self-talk, and when we are not able to love ourselves, then that kind of energy is also emitted. So we always want to make sure that we surround ourselves with people that help us to have that positive energy. And so let's get into it a little bit. Let's see what we're going to talk about. So what I think that, as we look and, at the time of this recording and the time when this recording will be published, it's February. And, February gets pegged as the month of love and roses and romantic dinners and all of those things. But instead of, or even rather, maybe even alongside of focusing on your partner, you focus on yourself, right? Focus on the relationship that you have with yourself and why that's so important. And we're going to talk about that. So, self love, as we know, is really foundational to sexual health and confidence, and how reframing February as a month of self nurturing can actually transform your perspective and the role self exploration plays in building a thriving, empowered sexual identity. So, we're just going to be talking about all things self love. So, grab your coffee or tea or hot chocolate on this cold winter day and just take a listen and tell me what you think. And let's begin this journey of self love and discovery together. So, before we dive into the specifics, let's just talk a little bit about why self love is so crucial for your health. So, think about it. When was the last time you actually appreciated yourself? And, I take this workout class, and I love the instructor in there because she talks about self love a lot. And she also talks about, knowing what you need at that time, knowing what, like, say, Sadaf needs today, right? And just by that, bringing about awareness about what you need, you can then communicate that to others. And, maybe you really need a hug today. Maybe you really need to be told that you're loved. Maybe you need to give someone else a hug, right? So, I think it's really important. And there's another book that I'm reading. It's called The Aladdin Factor, where it talks about, really asking people for what you need, because people can't read our minds, right? So it's really important to really let people know what we need and to also be so true to ourselves that we know what we need and so that we can ask for it. So when was the last time you truly appreciated yourself, your body, your mind, your desires, right? Self-love is, like we talked about, is the foundation on which sexual confidence is built. And so without it, we're more likely to have these feelings of insecurity, inadequacy, and even shame in our intimate moments, right? So it's really important to love ourselves and build that self confidence. There are, a lot of times what prevents women from really enjoying physical intimacy with their partner is that they're so busy judging themselves, right? So when they are physically intimate with themselves, with their partner, rather, they're so busy judging themselves, looking at, oh my God, I'm so fat, I'm this, I'm that. Look at, how my body has changed, my skin has changed. And, especially as we get older, we're so judgmental, especially of ourselves. And so, really important to find that self love and appreciate ourselves so that we can share that love with others. And I think that especially when we're being physically intimate with our partners, it's almost like an out of body experience, right? Like you're spectating, you're looking down at yourself, and so you're not really in the moment. And just doing that and being so focused on your body image is going to not allow you to be in the moment. And when you're not in that moment, you're going to have decreased desire, decreased arousal, and decreased lubrication. And so that's going to be part of the reason why you're not going to really enjoy or even want to be intimate with your partner, because you're so busy judging yourself, right? So this episode is really about calming down that negative self-talk that we have, and really trying to promote the self-love that we really know that we need, right? And so, of course, when we're juggling like these societal expectations and the pressure to perform, or even past experiences with other people, sometimes you can feel like you're not enough. And if you've ever been in that space, right, I can tell you that you're not alone, because so many people feel that way. But it doesn't have to stay that way. And that's the important thing to know, is that, just because you may have felt that way doesn't mean that you can't change or that there's no way forward. So self-love starts with a mindset shift, right? It's about seeing yourself not as a collection of imperfections, but as a whole person deserving of pleasure, care, and joy. And I think that we need to just kind of pause and think about, right? Like, you are a person that deserves pleasure, care, and joy. And I want you to really embody that, because when you know that you are, that you deserve that and that you're capable of that, then I think that you can, start to move forward. And practicing self love in the beginning, especially if you're not used to it, can feel a little bit unnatural, right? So you need to do a lot of practice, and we can start that by really limiting the negative self-talk that we have, but also with doing daily affirmations. And I think that those daily affirmations are really, really important. You start your day off, you list, and these affirmations come with, they start off with these I am statements, right? So you can start off with maybe like 5 daily affirmations, and you put them on your mirror, whatever. And every morning as you're brushing your teeth, you look at it and you say, I am a great speaker, whatever it is that you're working on, that, you don't even have to believe it. That's the amazing thing. You don't have to believe it, but you start out with saying these affirmations, and then eventually they'll get ingrained into your subconscious and you will start to believe it. Okay. And it's not about having this, imaginary thoughts about yourself, but it's more about like building resilience so that when that negative talk happens, and it will happen, that you're able to calm down those voices and, focus on the things that are positive about you. And that's really what's key. So, it starts with a mindset shift, like I talked about. It's about seeing yourself as a collection, as a person that is deserving of all the care, the love, and pleasure that you are seeking. And also looking at yourself from a place of love. And then all of a sudden, you'll see that this confidence starts to bloom naturally. So practicing self-love can feel unnatural, like we said, in the beginning, but it starts to feel more natural once you start doing those affirmations daily. And what you need to do is start to become more consistent with doing these affirmations. But by diligently performing these, acts of self-compassion to yourself, and also you can then start to experience the real benefits that come from having a positive and healthy relationship with yourself. So, of course, I'm going to go over all the benefits to, why having a good relationship with yourself is so helpful. But, it can help you with enhancing stress management, which is really important because we experience all sorts of stress throughout our lives. It can lower your rate of anxiety and depression, improve your cognitive performance. There's greater self-awareness and acceptance, and of course healthier diet, because when you love yourself, you're going to want to take care of yourself, right? And when you take care of yourself, one of the best ways to do that is, really trying to watch what you eat, and also to exercise, because that's a great way to show yourself that you love yourself. You don't have to do anything difficult or really intensive just to get started. You can just start by saying that you love yourself. And I know that that sounds weird in the beginning, but as you say it more and more, it won't sound strange. And you'll see that just doing these super simple, like affirmations, really has a huge impact on the way that you think, you behave, and in the life that you're going to create, right? And you can cultivate that love for yourself with the following method. So take out a little book, whether it's a journal or whatever it is that you have nearby, and I want you to write this down, because these are like super easy things that you can do. And if you're listening to this episode, maybe you're struggling with showing yourself self compassion and kindness and love. So here's some things that you can do on these cold winter days, right? That you have, and maybe you have some time to yourself. I would keep a daily gratitude journal. Now, these journals are fantastic because, as you know, the more you write about things that you are thankful for, the more happiness that it leads to. And it could be anything from being thankful about, maybe that you woke up this morning, right? Or that you have full function of your hands and your feet. Maybe it's, that you made yourself a cup of coffee without anyone bothering you, whatever it is, right? You want to make sure that being grateful is one of the things that you incorporate in your life, and taking your time and your mind out of that cycle of negativity by recognizing the things that have gone right really is valuable. And it really takes you out of that mindset of all this negative talk that people have all the time going on in their head, right? That everything is going wrong, nothing's working for them, blah, blah. By writing down all the things that you're grateful for, it really makes you focus on your wins and makes you focus on the things that are going right in your life, and which then will definitely lead to you being happier and more confident. Giving yourself a compliment every day. Start off your day with affirmations, like I talked about. Acknowledging the good things that you've accomplished, no matter how small, can be an excellent reminder of all the things that you can do, right? And your self worth, it can definitely increase that. And it also helps if you write that down. So, just as you might write down in your gratitude journal, in writing down things about yourself that you like are also very helpful, right? Take this opportunity to show kindness to yourself. And as a reminder that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to wait till you lose those 10 pounds, whatever, 11 pounds, whatever it is, right? That you're struggling with to love yourself. You can love yourself right now. And that's why that's so important. And remember that every moment that you resist the urge for negative self talk is a moment to be proud of yourself, and is a time, is showing that you're really moving in the right direction. Okay. Also, it's important to do things that make you feel happy, right? So, like doing pleasurable things, like focusing on your physical health, maybe your emotional, your mental health, maybe reading a book, maybe exercise, maybe listening to a podcast like this one. Focusing on things that make you happy also is going to encourage you to see yourself as an important being that deserves happiness. There's so many rejuvenating things that you can do, of course, like yoga and meditation and spending time in nature, taking up a new hobby, to maybe talking to family, right? Maybe something that fills your cup. Maybe it's talking to your friends. Maybe it's talking to your parents. Maybe you haven't connected with them in a long time and you're thinking about how important they are in your life, and then you give them a call. And I think that that's really important. I was reading a book and somebody had mentioned, the author had mentioned that imagine this really important person in your life no longer being there, right? How would you feel? How would you miss them? And so now you go and you see that they're still in your life. How can you show them the appreciation that you should have shown them before you had that thought, right? So, really imagining taking things away from yourself and then realizing that you still have them in your life really shows you how you can appreciate what you have currently. And I think that that's really important. Just really regulating your social media content. I mean, I think that social media is great and it's also bad, right? Social media shows us so much and gives us so much information, but sometimes I feel like that's overwhelming. And, it's not really realistic, right? Like, everyone on there always seems so happy, their lives seem so perfect, whatever, blah, blah. And I think that we know that's not true. We know that's not reality. But I think that if you get sucked up into that world, you're going to think that your life is not as important, or maybe is not even as great as what you're seeing online. And it's going to make you feel bad about yourself. So maybe just really regulate your social media, consuming social media, right? Consumption, regulate your social media consumption and be consistent. It's a good idea to regulate it. Used to just limit potentially disrupting activities, right? So, especially when you're trying to get things done, right? All of that noise, that external noise, really distracts you from getting what you need to get done. So, and it affects your physical and emotional well being. So, really make sure that you limit that. Practice mindfulness, right? To enhance your self awareness. When you're mindful, you're fully aware of actually what is happening and what's going on, and you're being present in the moment. And we know, we've talked about this so many times, but that being mindful in the moment really increases lubrication, arousal, desire in women, especially when they're being physically intimate. So, really important to try to incorporate that in your life. Instead of reacting on autopilot, you may be, when you are mindful, you're acting more with purpose and confidence. Be also confident in defining your boundaries, right? Expecting others to respect your boundaries without apology really is important, while showing other people the same thing. So if you expect people to, really live by your boundaries, then you should do the same. And I think that when you have these healthy boundaries, it really leads to more self confidence and self love. Also, the importance of self love is so important, especially if you're struggling with feelings of anxiety and low self-worth. Self-love is definitely more than just feeling good about yourself. It's really an essential component that enables you to live authentically and pursue your passions. And I think that that's really important, and to create meaningful connections, right? When you're looking toward becoming more emotionally intimate with, whether it's your partner or let's say it's your family member, whoever it is, that it's really important to come from a place of empathy and confidence, and really then I feel like you can be vulnerable in that relationship. So that's really important. We know that self-help also helps with stress reduction and building resilience, right? So just think about that. If you are confident, you're able to better handle negative situations that come about. Also, it can help decrease anxiety and depression, which I think I talked about a little bit. There's relaxation techniques, engaging in hobbies and journaling, right? We talked about the gratitude journal, so that's why that's really important. When you love yourself, you really understand your own worth, and then other people's opinions of you don't really matter. And that's why I think that that's really important, because that helps you to navigate rejections and when people tell you no, because, and it prevents you from allowing other people to treat you like garbage. And when you understand your self worth, you're less likely to be taken advantage of. So I think that it all comes into play with learning to love yourself and appreciate yourself. And I think that that's where, self love allows people to navigate difficult situations with a more optimistic mindset. Of course, it also helps you, right? So when you think about it, self love also helps you to, emotionally regulate. You can practice emotional self regulation with this and identify and understand your own emotions and regulate them. And that's why that's important. So when you love yourself, you're also better able to manage your emotions, which I think is key. It helps to prevent burnout. We know that burnout is such a huge problem, right? And that's when you have physical and emotional exhaustion. When you love yourself, you're going to be more likely to take care of yourself. You're going to do things that, allow for self-care, which could be like we talked about journaling, but it could be like a massage. It could be like a pedicure, whatever it is, whatever makes you feel loved, and something that you do for yourself, just for the sole purpose of yourself, is going to prevent burnout. So that's going to be really, really important. Promoting self-reflection, of course, self-care activities such as journaling or therapy help for us to really think about our lives and what's going on, and understanding the thoughts and the feelings that lead to our actions. And if we need to change something, if we're not doing something right, or if there's something in our life that we want to change, it's really important for us to understand our thoughts and our feelings so that we can change our actions. And that's really important. Loving yourself, of course, cultivates a positive self image, right? So when you love and appreciate and accept yourself just as who you are right now, then you're more likely to experience a sense of fulfillment, satisfaction, and definitely of peace, right? So that's why all of these things that I'm talking about are so important. And it's really getting to how can you love yourself and accept yourself as just as you are right now. And of course, remember that if you love yourself, you're going to be able to love others, right? So it helps you in other relationships. If you take care of yourself, you are able to form and maintain positive connections with others. And by having boundaries, healthy boundaries, and being able to communicate your needs as well as to show empathy with others, toward others. So that's why it's so important. The most important love that we can have is actually for ourselves, right? So we're not talking about narcissism. We're not talking about the feeling of superiority or entitlement and self-centeredness. We're talking about loving, respecting, and honoring yourself, and showing compassion and kindness to yourself, talking to yourself the way that you would a good friend, right? So if a good friend came to you and they were really struggling, you wouldn't sit there and beat them down more. You would show them kindness and compassion. That's really what we need to do for ourselves. Science shows us that just by being kind and compassionate to ourselves, we are less anxious and depressed and more happy and productive. So that's contrary to what, some people think that, like, oh, if I beat myself down, or if I, am constantly berating myself and telling myself, oh, you're not worthy, or you're not good enough, or this and that, this is going to motivate me. And science shows us that that's actually not true. The opposite is true. When we show ourselves kindness and compassion, we're actually more productive and happy. We're less judgmental of ourselves and others. And, there's this famous researcher, Kristen Neff, that writes about the three elements of self compassion, which is self kindness versus self judgment, common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over identification. And so, by observing these three elements of self compassion, we learn that our shortcomings are what make us human and connect us to our common humanity. So, that's why it's so important to love ourselves. The importance also there, so when we talk about self-love, there's also a part of it where it's important in the sense of exploring our own body's desires and wants and knowing what that is, right? So we are loving ourselves and we're respecting ourselves, and we're also discovering ourselves and learning about our bodies. So when we understand our body, it's super empowering, and knowing what feels good and what brings you joy and how your body responds isn't just a gift to yourself, it's also a gift to your partner, and a gift that you can then show them on how you want things, what your desires are and what your wants are. And I think that when you're, we talked about this before in a previous episode, but when you're able to discuss your wants and your desires, that leads to more satisfaction, and not only just sexual satisfaction, but satisfaction in general in your life. So, that communication is so important. And when you understand that in your body and what your body wants and likes, then that is another way to connect with your partner. A lot of people shy away from this about learning about themselves. And so it could be the internalized messages that we got that it's inappropriate or wrong to focus on our own pleasure, or maybe we've simply just never had time to explore. So I think that that's really important. So, you know, if we think about, if you don't understand your own body, how can you expect someone else to understand it? And that's the same thing about asking, right? Asking for what you want so that it leads to a more fulfilling relationship for you, and so that somebody else knows. So they're not trying to always read your mind, right? They don't know what you are thinking. So it's important for them to know that. And the only way for them to know that is if you talk to them. Okay. So give yourself permission to explore. That's one. That's one of the most important things that I'm going to tell you. And whether it's through touch journaling, or maybe just writing out your fantasies, or simply spending time appreciating yourself, right? These are some practices that can be really transformative. And remember, there's no right way to connect with yourself. The key is curiosity and not judgment. And that's really what's important. Self exploration is a great way to understand the way that your body works and what you like. So, sometimes what I've noticed is that, people often, when it comes to learning and understanding about their own bodies, they have a lot of, perhaps there's guilt around, pleasure, or guilt around shame. And I think that that's something that's really important to address, right? So many people carry guilt or embarrassment around the idea of self pleasure. And this is especially true if you grew up in an environment where talking about sexuality is taboo and you just don't do that. So studies show that self-pleasure can reduce stress, improve sleep, even boost self-esteem. And it's a way of tuning into your body signals and showing yourself care and compassion. Now, because this is the Muslim Sex Podcast, I want to get a little bit into what does, Islam say about masturbation. And when a lot of times they talk about self-pleasure, people really hesitate and shy away from that topic. So let's just talk about that, because I feel like that is really, the elephant in the room when we talk about self pleasure, because a lot of people feel that it's wrong and not something that is permissible. So there are several schools of thought. Okay, that's important to understand. In Islam, as you know, if you're listening to this podcast, and if you know anything about Islam, we know that there are two big sectors, right? We know there's Sunni and Shia, but even in the Sunni school of thought, which is predominantly the majority of the Muslims in the world, there are different schools of thought, or the different ways that Islam is practiced. And so from that, most will say, right, most schools of thought will say that masturbation is not allowed in Islam. But some scholars say that masturbation can be used as a last resort to prevent basically adultery, as a means of sexual release rather than a source of enjoyment. I know that I remember I used to go to these conferences when I was little, not little, but when I was a teenager, or whatever. And when there were these Muslim conferences, and one of the most commonly asked questions all the time. I mean, I'm telling you, like every single time there was question and answer, this question was asked, and it was about masturbation. It was something that a lot of people, and I would say like young adults, were concerned about and wanted to know whether or not it was permissible. And like I said, there's definitely lots of schools of thought. Some say that it's absolutely not permissible. Others say that, well, under certain conditions, it is permissible. There's an author, Habiba Kande, that talks about this in his book of Women of Desire. And he talks about how there's a Muslim cleric as recent as 2016 who stated that female masturbation was allowed, and that the clerics suggested women could masturbate to relieve sexual desires and use it as a means to prevent them from committing adultery. Regardless of whatever your views are, if you're listening to this podcast, whatever your views are, it's important that you speak with a religious scholar, because obviously I am not a religious scholar. I'm not giving any type of religious advice. And see what that scholar or what your research shows you, and then read up on your school of thought. And then, important to do what you feel is right. And I think that that's, after you are empowered with the education, the knowledge, then you make your decision. And then you can decide. But, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that when we talk about self pleasure. We talk about masturbation for a lot of other cultures and religions. Masturbation, I'm not really sure, actually, to be honest, what other religions say, but I know that culturally, it's not, people definitely shy away from talking about it, and there is definitely a stigma and a taboo. But for some people really suffer with sexual insecurities, and some people really suffer because they don't know or understand their bodies. And I think that it's really important to know and understand your body, right? Because if you know, then you can then talk to others and explain to them what you want. So I think that's why that's important. Finally, let's just talk about confidence, right? And building confidence in your sexual identity. I think that building confidence in your sexual identity isn't just about, fitting into like a specific mold or something that you think that you should be doing. It's about embracing basically your unique experiences, your desires, and your boundaries, and really knowing and understanding what those are so that you can tell somebody else. Confidence then, of course, will then just grow authentically, right? And it'll start to happen for you. Maybe that means having these open conversations with your partner, maybe scheduling in these conversations, right? That's often what happens, is that people get so busy, they're not able to talk or schedule in times when they can talk about these topics. So really important to find that time. And it's about, redefining what intimacy means for you, and what that looks like as you age and as you navigate your life changes, because we know everything changes. And it's also about reminding yourself daily that you are enough exactly as you are. You don't need to change. You are, because if we constantly measure ourselves to other people, we will definitely never be enough. So it's important to know that we are enough, and that acceptance, that compassion, that kindness starts with ourselves to ourselves. And that's what's really important. Know that self-love isn't selfish, it's essential, and it's really the foundation of a healthier, more fulfilling life, both in and out of the bedroom. And so when you are thinking about the month of February, I want you to think about it as showing love to others, but also showing love to yourself, love, compassion, and kindness to yourself. And taking this month to nurture the love that starts from within. Really important that you do that. So And well, we are done here. And I hope you learned a lot of things. I hope you learned about self love, acceptance, and how you can foster that relationship with yourself. And by just doing simple acts, whether if it's just eating a nutritious lunch or dinner, whether it's doing exercise, whether it's going for a spa day, whatever it is that shows that you love yourself. I hope you take some time out today to do that and show yourself some love and kindness. And again, we are done here, and it's been real and really intimate. And this is not any type of medical advice or even psychological advice or therapy or anything like that. If you're having any issues with self love and accepting yourself the way you are, please speak with a certified therapist to help you on your journey to loving yourself. And until next time, this is the Muslim Sex Podcast. So thank you for listening to the podcast, and make sure you leave us a review, share and like the podcast. And if you leave me a review, I'd love to shout you out on social media. So be sure that you share it with all your friends. And thanks for listening.